is Deshaun Watson, who clearly, has had some time in Houston and, had some really good success in Houston. Again, not major success. We go back to golf a little bit. He did go to the Super Bowl one year. Granted, put up a stinker offensively, 3 points against the Pats. But nevertheless, Watson did have some success in Houston. They had the team built in. Bill O'Brien's system for a little bit seemed to be working. And boy, you just in one season you've gone from near the top of that AFC South to now just a complete mess in Houston. And there's a lot of stories about maybe some racial components, just faith in certain management that's there, and Deshaun Watson now wants out, and so
quite a few players want out.
Quite a few players want out. J.J. Watson the one too. So
for sure.
I guess the first question, and then we'll get to the second question. The first question is kind of what are your thoughts about the situation, and then the second question will be kind of where do we think he's going to end up.
All right, I'll keep both answers short and concise because this could be a whole hour episode on its own, in my opinion, because there was that whole saga of him wanting to play for the Jets, and I'm a Jet fan. Don't get confused by this, even though this is the NFC team I do root for on occasion. I am a Jet fan. So anyways, I progress. The situation normally would be, and here's the thing too, I don't like being the person, again, sitting on my couch without knowing the ins and outs to judge a player because I'm only hearing one side of a story, so I don't like to be that person to quickly judge too fast. But in the many instances, I'll be the first one to be like that player's being a prima donna. They're bringing drama to the situation. But from everything I've read and heard, not from one source, not from two sources, from multiple sources, a lot of them pretty highly, credentialed and reliable, if you will, that this one is not on Deshaun. This is internal. There seems to be a real issue. And like you were kind of alluding to in Houston, and so I think Deshaun and some of these other players are proceeding, and I don't want to say the right way, but I think they have a right to be pissed. And I think based on what I've heard and what I've read, it's an absolute dumpster fire in Houston at the moment. And it really started with O'Brien getting rid of DeAndre Hopkins for a bag of garbage. And just from then on, it just feels like...
Boy, that trade, dude, you look back on it. Especially how Arizona did this year.
Right.
I mean, they were a fairly young team, supposedly still in a little bit of a rebuild, but obviously you had the up-and-up Kyle Murray, and you bring Hopkins in there, and boy, they were so close to the postseason.
They were, and I think that they're going to be competitive for a while. But just to kind of close that part of your question out, normally I'd be pissed at the player. And I think that players, in many ways, should stay. And please don't take this the wrong way, and you also don't take this the wrong way, because I mean this very, everything is situational. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but from what I've heard and from what I've read, I don't think it's fair to Deshaun Watson to be treated the way I think he's being treated as the potential franchise frickin' player. I think he has the right to be upset. And when you're off the cuff told that you're going to have potentially a say, and obviously at the end of the day, there's people above you for a reason. You're playing and your job is to play. But when you're told that you're going to have a say in who's coming in and who's going, and then essentially that's ripped out from, that was a blatant lie, how are you going to feel? Are you going to trust this? Are you going to trust your, superiority? Are you going to trust your coaches? Are you going to trust your management when they say one thing and then essentially the very next day it's the complete opposite? That just says you don't have a lot of faith, and the faith you do have is kind of fake or forced. And from what I've read and again from what I've heard for the 1,000th time, I think these players seem to be in the right.
Okay. Well, Dave, you outlined that very well, and like I said, you've had some sources that kind of get you some more insight. I know, bigger agencies out there, bigger broadcasting companies out there have bigger insider sources. From my perspective, I don't know the full story. I don't think anybody really knows the full story.
Other than them.
And so there's always some speculation that comes with it, but basically the underlying theme is that it goes beyond the sports realm of things. It goes in terms of a business.
Sure.
And any kind of entity.
Yeah.
Where if you breed a culture that disrespects, the human in people, for their worth, their talents, their whatever.
Yeah.
Naturally any person's going to want out.
Or want it fixed, and if he or she doesn't envision a fix happening,
and this gets heightened when you have someone more high
high profile for sure.
And so if this was like it's not to demean anybody, but like if it was a tackle or a kicker or whoever,
it might not
probably
be as polarized.
Probably doesn't get the headlines, probably doesn't get the media attention, probably doesn't get a lot of the the bad taste. But when football teams look up to quarterbacks, it's kind of their leader, leader of men,
sure.
And they're the ones that feel mistreated. And it feels legit, and the troops kind of agree that he's been treated. It sends a really bad message, not only to the team, but to the league, to the fans.
Yeah.
And so all you can think about is Watson has every right to want to get out.
From what I've heard, yeah.
And now I know they brought in this new head coach, and it seems like I don't know if it's a new head coach or new general manager, but they brought in this new GM. And basically the new GM...
Did they hire a new coach?
I meant it might be the new head coach, but basically they brought in this new staff, and that the staff, I guess, had this expectation that Watson would still be a Texan next year. And Watson's basically made it clear that he's not going to play.
He's either going to sit out or he wants to be traded.
Now there's been some debate about what if Houston does not push a trade through. What does Watson do? Does he sit out? Does he honor him? Is he honorable enough to kind of still show up and try to participate? And it becomes a very murky, I guess, subject.
It does, that's for sure, man.
But nevertheless, kind of going on to the second question here is, if there's a team out there, I guess, what's the team that you think can use Watson the most, and what's the team that we ultimately think Watson will end up with? And maybe it's the same answer for both questions, but what's your take on that?
I mean, the team that could use him the most is essentially a team that could use a quarterback the most.
Yes.
And other than the Jaguars, who are
we're assuming they're going to take Trevor Lawrence.
We're assuming.
Yeah.
So
maybe we scratch the...
If Urban Meyer pulls a... I'm not going to... That's a whole other topic. Yeah. But, I mean, the team that I really think that's going to be heavily in favor of him and him in favor potentially back, other than the New York Jets, just simply because he likes Saga, who's the new head coach, I really can see him either going to the Panthers, back to his home state, Carolina, or he might end up in Indianapolis if Darnold doesn't get traded there. He might be a Colt.
Okay. That's right, because Phil Rivers retired, and they're looking for a quarterback now.
They're completely looking for a quarterback, and they have a lot of other weapons, so a quarterback would put them over the top, especially a quarterback like Deshaun. So, I mean, that's just my opinion. That's who I think is going to get them, who I think, where I see him going. And I think similarly, I agree that that's where he's going to go, if he leaves Houston.
Okay, there's a few teams that are on my radar, and there's two that I keep hearing about. One is Chicago.
I think Chicago.
And the reason why Chicago, Mitchell Trubisky, they got into the postseason as the 7th seed. So I mean, there's still kind of in this up and down feeling about, is Trubisky really your quarterback to go? But there's been this belief that Chicago, who has this rich culture of football,
it does absolutely.
The one area they've always seemed to really lack is star talent, the QB position. Even the '86 Bears.
It was defense. It
was all about defense. This team's best known for defense. Kind of that Cole mentality, running style.
Sure.
Never known for a star quarterback. And there's a feeling that if Chicago can just get that kind of talent at the QB position, could really turn their fortunes. And, especially all the issues going on in Green Bay now, Aaron Rodgers trying to lead them, that's another story. Maybe there's an opportunity for Chicago to kind of carve out, a period of dominance in that division. So Chicago's one. And two, the name we keep hearing is the Jets. But I will say this, as a Giants fan, there's been some discussion about whether the Giants should cut ties with Daniel Jones.
Right.
Throw the house, I should say, at Houston,
right,
and get Deshaun Watson. And that's comes down to this big question of how much stock do you put in your quarterback to drive your team? How much talent are you willing to give up in depth at other positions
or draft picks?
Draft picks. That's probably going to do to have a quarterback drive your team, because that's always been the philosophy kind of with Aaron Rodgers a little bit, and even a little bit of Patrick Mahomes, even though he has a lot of talent there, but there's still this belief that, if you really, swing for the fences with your quarterback and you succeed, you can overcome some gaps otherwhere to make your talent. I bring up the Jets because that's the number one name we keep hearing, because there's this belief that they have the most assets to give back.
And they do.
The number 2 pick overall. I'm assuming that would go if they traded for Watson. Would they bring?
Absolutely.
I'm guessing Darnold will go back there too.
From what I'm hearing, Houston wants 3 1s, a 2, and then among other things. So that's just why I'm saying, I know you say Chicago. My issue with them is that I don't know if they have the capital to offer. Simply. Again, like you said, the Giants and the Bears would be 2 teams that maybe I could see them going to, but they would have to throw the book at Houston. Okay. The Jets would still maintain quite a bit of leverage because they have a lot of other, from sucking, they have a lot of other options and picks and cap space. So they have a lot of other stuff to work with. Even if they did pick up Deshaun, they have a lot of money. So I guess we'll see, and that'll. I kind of wanted I want to continue this conversation because
I know we gotta definitely gotta wrap it up.
Well, yeah, but no, I mean also just because there's other aspects of it I want to talk about. There's specifically teams I want to go down the list on who has the best chance, why they have the best chance, and that kind of stuff. So that's just to kind of touch on the Watson.
Yeah, and we'll revisit this later, Dave. But one final thought before we wrap this up: who do you ultimately think where Watson plays next year? If you had a guess. You can be biased if you want. Just say the Jets.
I don't.
You don't.
I don't.
Okay.
The more I dig into stuff, I don't see it. And Joe Douglas, the GM, he really loves building through the draft more so. And I've been hearing a lot of news that they're going to go with either Fields or Trey Lance or Justin Fields, one of those 3 QBs. And they're going to trade Darnold. That's what I'm hearing now, more so than ever, if they're not going to give the book to Houston. Okay. So with that being said, my final pick, and this is a long way out, well, potentially not long way, it could be settled by April, Carolina Panthers.
Interesting.
That's my final pick, and I'm sticking to it. However, it could change, but that's my gut at the moment.
Well, Dave, if we hear the announcement from Carolina, we will definitely get this video on YouTube. We'll play it and we'll say, this guy right here, he picked it. He picked it.